thank you for joining me for episode 20 of My Doll's House Diary. Now, since the last episode, I've managed to get quite a bit done in the study, so here's what I've been up to. So it's the next day now, and the paint has completely dried, but it still does look dark. And it actually struck me, I didn't use the mushroom paint for the kitchen. I mixed mushroom with white. I think I did 1 part mushroom, 1 part white. So that's why it looks so much darker. And I was considering just leaving it this colour, but I really don't think it will look right with what I've got planned for the rest of the room. I also did think about using a paint we've just used in our living room when we decorated. I think it's called Natural Calico, and it's a really nice sort of pale beige colour. And I'd said that before, so I don't know how I forgot about that. So I'm going to go down to the shed now and get that tin of paint, and then I'll do a second coat in here. That should cover up this first darker coat, but if not, I'll just do a third coat. So that's 1 coat of the Natural Calico. And even with it wet like this, I can see that it's more the sort of colour I was going for. So I'm much happier with that. The mushroom had even sort of gone quite pinky on the paper, whereas on wood it just dries a nice dark beige. Obviously on the paper it reacts differently. So I'll leave this to dry now, and again you can see that the paper is starting to bubble up, but as with that first coat I'd done overnight, that just shrinks back. So we'll have another look at this in the morning and see what's happened, and I'll decide as well whether I want to do another coat. I'm not sure if it's just because I've been sort of staring at it, but I'm still sort of seeing the mushroom coming through. But I think just because I'm working in quite a bright light, my eyes might have just gone a little bit funny. So I'll see how that dries and how it looks in natural daylight tomorrow. But thinking about it, this is a really nice colour for the hallways as well. So the entrance hall, landing and upper hallway. So I think I might do the ceilings of those and get those painted. And even though I'm not going to be working on them yet, then they'll be ready for when we start doing them. So whilst that first coat of paint is drying, I just wanted to show you a couple of other things that I've completed. So that was the second hearth that I made, a little bit longer if you remember, so that I had a little bit of an overhang at that end, and we had that nice square edge here. So that's that finished. And then also the fire surround, which you may have seen the tutorial for, and that will sit on there like that, and I think that looks really good. So what I want to do now is to apply wallpaper to the chimney breast, and I'll be having it like a bit of a feature wall, so it won't be on the surrounding walls at either side, it will just be on the chimney breast. Now I did find some paper online, but when I got it, it was a stripe, and when it arrived, the stripes were very close together. It didn't look quite how it looked in the picture, and the colour as well was a lot brighter, so it was like a sort of I thought it was like a pale blue, but it was actually quite a deep royal blue when it arrived. So I'm not going to use that. I'm going to make my own. And I'm actually going to use the Laura Ashley design that is shown in one of those photos that I'm using for inspiration. So let me show you how I actually went about printing the paper. So first of all, let me just apologise that this is going to look a little bit grainy because I'm actually filming the screen of my laptop. Now I know there are special programs you can get for when you're doing this sort of thing, but because it's something I don't do very often, I don't really want to invest in a program that I'm not going to use that often. So just bear with me. I hope you can still see what I'm trying to show you. So for the wallpaper, I found an image on Google of the actual wallpaper. I saved that as a JPEG image, which I then opened in Adobe Photoshop. I then changed the resolution to 300 pixels per inch, and that will just give you a better quality print. I then printed that off just to get an idea of the scale. So I don't want the stripes to be too wide apart as it will look out of scale. And I just used for that my printer's lowest quality setting because I didn't want to waste my coloured ink just on a test run. And in the end I decided on a width of 5.5 centimetres, but you'll just have to keep printing it off until you're happy with the size of the pattern. I then cut the white border from around the outside edge. And then you want to find your pattern repeat. So I go from this sort of white stripe here on the left hand side, and then there's that sort of pale blue and darker blue narrow stripe, so I want to cut that off on the opposite side, and the white stripe as well. So I sort of brought it to the edge of this thicker cream band. So then that's my repeat. So cut that off like that. Then I opened up a new file, and you want to make your new file the same resolution, so to the 300 pixels per inch. Otherwise you'll find that this first image won't fit into your new file. And I just made the size of the file 30 wide by 50 high, like that. You then want to drag your image over to that file. You can see how much bigger this file is than this one. And then drag it again. And don't worry at the moment about lining them up because you won't be able to see on this smaller one exactly. So just put them over. And I've actually already done this, and I've got the piece saved that I want to print off. Then if you cut that off, and then Control-0 to make that as big as the screen, you can actually see better detail. So then you want to go back to your second layer, and then I can move it about, you see. So then I want to attach it so that it's the same as this first row. So I've got that white line again, and then those two thin ones. And then I move on to my third layer, which I'm sort of doing over here in a little control panel. And then I can move that along and then do the fourth one. And all the time I want this white stripe to be the same thickness. And then the fifth one. And jut that up like that. And then I actually trimmed this like that. Make it all into one layer. So that's now all one piece. And then I set up a new file to the same size. And then I copied that onto the new file. And it's just so that you haven't got all those tiny pieces to keep joining up, and you can do it in layers like that. And I'll just do that many for now. Again, trim that to size. Let's get rid of these other images and make this one fit the screen. And then once you see it close up, you can see where your gaps are. So I want to go back to the second layer that I put in and then line that up. Again, the third layer. And the fourth and the fifth look pretty good. So the new file that you make and then you drag your sort of smaller images into, that needs to be the size probably of an A4 sheet, unless you want a smaller piece for something. So make your new file to the exact size that you want the printable sheet to be, and in my case I did it to the full A4 size because I've got that chimney breast to cover. So I'll just close that one down and I'll open up the one that I saved. I've got it here in my the inspiration pictures that I saved for the study, and it was there. And I'm now going to print that off using my printer's best quality setting. And I've printed off 2 A4 sheets, as one sheet doesn't quite wrap all the way around the chimney breast, so I'll just add a little bit in on the right hand side where it can't be seen. But I just want to start by going around with my scissors and trimming off the white border. So I've just put a piece of blue card on my work surface to protect the face of the paper. So I'm going to turn it face down like that, and I just want to cut it the height of the chimney breast. So I'm going to lay the chimney breast right along the bottom there. Make sure that's level. And I'm just moving it down a tiny bit, so not even 1/2 millimetre below the bottom of the paper, and that's just because I don't want there to be anything overhanging at the bottom. And any little tiny gaps that will be there will be covered by the skirting board and the fire surround. So I'm just going to take my pencil and go along the top of the chimney breast there, just draw a line across there, move that out of the way, and then I can just join that line up with my rule. And again, just cut along there. Okay, I'm now ready to attach the paper, so I'm actually going to apply the glue directly to the chimney breast surround. I also want to put a bit along this side and round the back, but I'll just spread this bit out first. Put my glue spreader here. Just for a change, I didn't apply too much. And just when I wanted to as well, because I wanted to bring it around the side. So I'll just see if I can stand it up like that. Pop a bit more glue on. And again, I'm just using my Gorilla Wood glue. And then I just want to apply a little bit along this on the back edge. And I'm just going to bring the paper around a little bit. I'm just going to turn that over because I think I've got a little bit of glue on it. And I made that mistake last time. I put my paper down on some glue splodges. It just tore. So I only want to overlap it this side by a tiny bit because I want to have enough to wrap across the front, and I want the join to be out of sight on the other side. I'll just do that like that. And I can just about see the lines through the paper, so I know I've got a nice straight edge there. I'm sort of creasing that first fold in at the same time. And around the front, I've got that nice straight line along the corner there, and that's where it will be noticeable if you're not straight, when you've got lines. If you're using a sort of busy pattern, it's not so bad. But when you've got stripes, it will be noticeable. Pressing that into place. So this is where I haven't quite got enough over this other side. So I'm just going to begin by sticking that strip down. So let me just fold a nice crease. Bit more glue on there. I'm going to put a little bit along that back edge again as well. I'll unfold that over. And then I'm just going to sort of judge what I need here. And it sort of goes from that line. So I'll cut along there, even though it's not going to be visible when you're looking into the doll's house. I still want it to line up. I just want to trim a little bit off that edge. And then again, I'll just sort of judge where I need to cut it to, and I'm going to go along a line so I know I've got a nice straight cut. Okay, so let's get that. A little bit of a bubble in there. In fact, I think I'm just going to pop a little bit more glue on. I think it's starting to dry off, and this bit won't stick properly. A little bit under there where it's bubbling up. And then attach that piece. And I'm going right alongside it, like that, and then I'm going to fold that over the back and crease it along. Like that. Now I know I've covered up the opening here, but I'm just going to let that dry off, and then I'm just simply going to cut around the opening. And because that's going to be sort of hidden below our surround, any edges that aren't perfectly straight won't be seen. They'll be hidden under there anyway. But I am just going to let it dry off, because if you sort of try to cut it before it's dry, you'll just end up ruckering it or pulling it off around where you're trying to cut. So I'll let that dry off, and then we'll cut out the opening. This is now completely dried, so I'm going to cut out this section at the front. I'm just going to use my scissors, my smaller scissors, and just follow the line of the sort of side piece to the opening there. Like that. You can then fold that up. Trim a little bit more off that inside edge. I didn't want to go too close, I didn't want to be cutting the sort of black brick paper underneath. I think I'm safe. And then I can trim across there. Better to do it that way probably. That. I just actually want to pull that up a little bit further. I don't want it overhanging. I know it won't be seen from the front, but I don't want to feel that you'll be able to see it if you sort of look in and up. Not that anybody would, I'm sure. There, like that. So yes, it looks messy, but now we're going to cover it with the fireplace surround. I'll glue over there like that. So I want to actually put glue on the back of the surround. In fact, I think I'll dispense it onto a little bit of card just to keep it a bit neater, and then apply it with my cocktail stick. Got a bit more control over that. A bit more over that side. So the black inserts there are designed to go on the inside edge, so I'm sort of going to get those lined up in there first, and on that side as well. And I'm just making sure that the leg is right at the bottom of that side piece there, so that when I come to stand it in place I've got a nice flush bottom edge. And that one as well. Press it all down. I'm going to use my ratchet clamps to hold this into place, but because I don't want them marking the wood, I'm just torn up some pieces of kitchen towel, and I'm going to use them on each of these sort of corner bits to prevent it from marking. So sort of put that into place like that. This is where you need extra hands. Just put that on there. I haven't completely tightened it up yet. I'm just going to get them all into place and then I'll go around and tighten them up. Trying to sort of clamp it onto one of the shelf parts at the back. And the same with this one. Am I still in camera shot? Just about, I think. Make sure that's clamping onto something. Just have a look from the back. Yeah, I'm going to turn that one around as well. Just so I'm sort of actually clamping onto wood rather than just a gap. And then I'll give them all a quick squeeze. And that can then be left to dry. So whilst the fire surround is drying, I just wanted to show you how the paint in the study has dried, and it's such a nice colour now. And that was just the one coat over the top of the mushroom, so one coat of the natural calico, and it's dried really nicely. All of the little wrinkles have shrunk back. So I'm really pleased with that now. So whilst that fire surround is drying, I also want to apply a coat of varnish to my hearth. Now I've given the hearth a gentle sand using a 600 sandpaper, and I've left my tape tab in place on the back there. And I'm using this Rustin's Quick Dry Varnish, which is a clear satin. Now when you're using varnish over paint, it's best not to dip your brush back into the tin, or else you'll contaminate the varnish. So I've just dispensed a little bit into a plastic tub here, using my teaspoon, handy to keep in your toolbox for things like this. And I'm just going to apply that. Now when it goes on, it looks rather milky, but it does just dry to a clear satin. Be sure to get along that overhanging lip as well. And this just makes it look less like wood and more like a sort of, I suppose it would be a granite hearth. The hearth is now touch dry, and I just wanted to try it in place in there, and I really like how that looks. And with the flooring in there as well, that's going to look really nice. There's the gap at the top to allow, obviously, for the thickness of the flooring, and any other gapping will be hidden by the coving. Now I just wanted to show you, if I come down like that, can you see that sort of strip of white under the backing brick there? That's just where the brick paper doesn't come down far enough. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of black paint directly onto that back wall there, so that when I stick this into place, and that paper, if you remember, is going to be stuck against that wall, then you're not going to see that white strip there. So I'm going to do that next. So now I'm not going to be using this electrical outlet. I actually just want to put a little bit of tape over that as well. just want to apply paint from about there over. I'm just using that off black again that I used for the brick paper, and that will be enough. That's fine. Once that's dry, we'll just try it in place again just to make sure, but I'm sure that's enough. So I've just been testing out some paints for the furniture in the study, and I've tried a few. I've had this Farrow's Cream, which you might remember I used for the original front room for the panelling that was in there, but that on its own is a little bit too yellowy. I really like the Ottawa, which is a really nice creamy white, but when painted onto the wood it looked a little bit too white. So I've mixed the two together, and I use this spoon which I keep in my toolbox as a measuring spoon, and I just added 1/2 spoonful of each colour, and then just kept adding in the Ottawa until I was pleased with the colour. And this is what I wanted, a really sort of pale cream, almost sort of like a magnolia, and that ended up being 1/2 teaspoon of the Farrow & Ball Farrow's Cream and 4 half spoonfuls of the Good Home Ottawa. So I've got quite a bit mixed in here, so that will do quite a few pieces of furniture, and I'll put a bit of cling film over that when I'm not using it. I've just received an order of fabric from Little Trimmings, which I've ordered for the study, and in particular I'm working on a tutorial for a sofa at the moment, and I haven't made one before, so it's new to me as well, so I'm sort of having a practice. But I've ordered this fat quarter of material for the sofa, and it's this lovely blue, which I did actually use in my beach themed living room, and I really liked it in there. I was going to go for a cream for the sofa and just sort of dress it up with blue cushions and things, but I thought the blue will stand out nicer against the cream walls. So that's the blue I've gone for, and it's called, well, it says that it's got a tiny check, and I don't know if you can see that on camera. It has got a tiny check, but it doesn't look like checks, it just looks like a sort of a mottled blue almost, but I really like that. And then I've gone for some coordinating fabrics to use for cushions, not just for the sofa, but also for that little built-in bench that I'll be making. And I might do that in blue, you know, like the main cushion of the seat in blue, or I might choose one of these coordinating fabrics as that one. And I was going for things that had a sort of beachy theme, so that sort of stood out to me. And this stripe as well, which I've also had before, but I just wanted to order a little bit extra of it because I've only got a little bit left in my fabric box. Another stripe here, a darker cream with a navy zigzag stripe, and then these spots, so light and dark blue, well, circles really rather than spots on a cream fabric. Another narrow stripe, navy blue and white, and then this one that I really like, and it's sort of similar to the wallpaper that I printed off. There's lovely sort of pattern in it and little motif. And then just because I had to make the order up to £10 because there's a minimum order cost on the website, I just ordered this check, red and green check, which I might use in the living room. So I just ordered a little sample piece, and if the sofa tutorial goes well, I'll probably make another sofa, and I may use this or use this as a contrasting fabric for cushions and things. So that was that, not for the study. And then, let me just bring that back over. I ordered a couple of packs of bunker. I asked the lady there at Little Trimmings to match it to the main fabric for me, which she's done with that one. And then that's the one I picked, which I thought might be a nice contrast. But look at that blue bunker with that fabric. It exactly matches that little motif there. And I just thought that would make a really nice cushion with this fabric and the bunker around the outside. So I'm really looking forward to doing some cushions and things for that room. So that just arrived today, and I was so pleased with it that I just wanted to share those with you. And I'll, over the next couple of days, carry on with that sofa tutorial. and then I'll share that hopefully if it's a success. If not, it'll be back to the drawing board. Since I've fitted the floor into the study, I've now decided I don't like this black hearth. I think it just looks far too dark against the floor, which I knew it would, but when I sort of look into the room, your eye is just sort of drawn to that because it's so dark and it really stands out. So I've made another one. Let me just get that one out of there. And this time I'm just using 2.5mm sheet wood. And to make that I applied a coat of grey paint, the same one that I used as the base coat for the flooring. Once that had dried, I sanded it using a 500 grade sandpaper. And then I applied the top coat of mushroom emulsion using a piece of sponge. I used a dry piece of sponge to remove some of the top layer of paint. And I did that just to create a sort of mottled effect. And I've just cut it so it's just narrower than the chimney breast. Put that in there like that. And though that's going to be lower down on the ceiling now, I've got a larger gap at the top there. If I put my coving into place up there, you could see that still covers the gap. So that was my only worry with using a thinner hearth, but that's okay, that still works. And where I've got the gap in around the bottom here, I'll be covering that with the skirting board, and we'll do a little bit that goes in at the corner there and cut that section out, so you won't be able to see the gap in here at the sides of the chimney breast either. So that was that, and I just think it looks so much better and fresher. I think with the black hearth, like I say, you look in and your eye is just drawn over there. So that was that. And then since the fabric arrived, I just could not wait to get on with the sofa. So I've started the tutorial here. Now obviously, as you can see, I've still got the sort of seat cushions to cover and do the piping and everything on those. And there will also be some legs on there, so that will be a little bit higher. And that I'm going to have over there. And I'd also made a start on a little chest coffee table. Let me just go and grab that. And the plan was to have that there. So the sofa will actually be over a little bit, so it's sort of opposite the fireplace. And then the little coffee table there. But if I just bring you around and show you that from looking straight on into the room, I think it's too narrow. So there's a lot of space between the sofa and the fire. So I'm going to make a wider coffee table. I'm actually going to make it 3 inches wide, so it will fill sort of evenly the space between the sofa and the chimney breast. I really like this, and I'll stick with a similar design. But I just think it's lost in there, it's too small. So I've already started that, but I've just sort of cut the pieces for the next tutorial, so that will be coming up. And you're probably thinking, oh no, she's not changing things again, but I think if I've learnt a lesson through doing all this, especially through stripping back the doll's house, it's that I'm not going to settle for anything that I'm not entirely happy with. And I'm sure this won't be the first thing that I'll be changing as we go along. So I'm now going to fit the hearth and the chimney breast into place, and then I'll wrap this episode up, and in the next episode we can start doing the coving and the skirting, and then the next thing will be to do that little built-in bench. But in the meantime I'll have the coffee table tutorial for you and the sofa. So I've just applied glue to the bottom of the hearth, and I just wanted about 5mm before the end of that black paint line, and that's just leaving about 1 centimetre at the side of the chimney breast before the window starts, and then I'll have a little bit extra for the little bench that we're going to put in there. So I'm just pressing that down. Make sure there's no glue seeping out, which there isn't. So once again, I'm just going to use a piece of kitchen towel on there, And then I just have to say thank you to Debbie, who suggested, before weighing the pieces down, and she actually suggested this on the flooring tutorial that I put up last, put a ceramic tile on top to really get into the corners, and I'm using that on this as well because I think that will work. And then when you put your tins on top, the weight is sort of being evenly distributed. So thank you for that, Debbie. So I'm using that there. I might just prop another little bit of 2.5 under the other side of the tile. I'm just going to pop that under there as well, just to hold that straight. And that will then weigh the hearth down. Once that's dry, I can attach the chimney breast. So I've applied glue as well to the back of the chimney breast. I'm now going to put that into place. Like that. And then I want to get that paper stuck right against the wall in there. So that's completely flat. And I can't really even see what I'm doing, so I'm just using my fingers to feel that I'm pushing it against the actual wall of the doll's house. Let me have a peep in there, make sure that looks nice and flat. And I can even see that little crack underneath the paper, so I'm really glad I did that line of black paint under there. Otherwise I'd just be able to see the cream wall showing through. So always do try things in place first and just see how they look before you start gluing them in, just in case there are any little things that you need to do to cover up gaps or anything. And I'm pushing that against the wall, but that does actually feel quite solid. It feels as though it's sitting nice and flat against the wall, which is good. Now I just realised I didn't actually put any under here onto the feet, but it doesn't seem to matter, it's still sticking where I want it to. I'm just going to go and grab a cocktail stick just to get that little bit of glue along the edge there. Just as I pressed that down, I saw a little bit of glue seeping out. I should have got my kitchen towel as well. I should have come prepared. Like that. Keep pressing so that all the glue that's sitting behind it will come out. And you can get rid of it before it dries. So I'm just sort of going to press and hold until the glue begins to take, as I can't really think of any way to sort of secure this against the wall. Obviously not clamps or tins or any of those things aren't going to work. I don't want to use tape because obviously I don't want to pull off any of the paper. The glue is now just beginning to take, so I think I'll just have to leave it there and hope for the best. But it does seem to be, like I say, laying nice and flat against the wall. Just drop my cocktail stick. And just a little bit more glue coming out there. It's going to look really good once we've got the coving and the skirting around, and it actually makes it look more like it's part of the wall rather than just stuck on as it does now. So it'll be good to get that done. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Do look out for the coffee table and sofa tutorials, which will be coming up shortly. And for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.